Welcome back to Equip, Build, and Mature. And since this is Tuesday, I want to share a word of encouragement with you. And today it will be Ephesians 6, 10 to 13 will be somewhat the summary, giving us the idea of the narrative I'm going to be sharing. So Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 13, this is how the scripture reads. Finally, be strengthened in the Lord and by his vast strength. Put on the full armor of God so that you can stand against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this darkness, against evil spiritual forces in the heavens. For this reason, take up the full armor of God so that you may be able to resist the evil day, and having prepared everything, to take your stand. So in 1 Samuel chapter 17, that's where our narrative today is coming from, we find Israel's very fearful soldiers. Every day, a giant Philistine, almost 10 feet tall, terrorized them. His name was Goliath. His large and heavy armor and weapons made the men of Israel tremble. Each day, Goliath went out and he ridiculed Israel and he ridiculed the God of Israel. He offered to fight any Israelite soldier if he was brave enough, but no one was until one day. Back in the fields of Bethlehem, there was a shepherd boy. His name was David, and he was taking care of the family's flock of sheep. David had 7 older brothers, and 3 of them were soldiers in Saul's army. Now, David's dad, Jesse, told David to take some food to his brothers. Well, David, he was more than willing to go. But when he got to the field of battle, he saw this giant march out and mock and threaten Israel and their God. Well, David, he just couldn't understand how this pagan enemy could defy the God of Israel and get away with it. He wondered why not one of Israel's soldiers was willing to fight him. Now, some of the soldiers even told David about the reward that King Saul had offered. If a soldier killed Goliath, he would become very wealthy and he could marry the king's daughter. And even with all that incentive, not one man had yet tried. When David's oldest brother saw him coming to where they were stationed, where the army was stationed and fortified, he was very angry. Now, David's questions were distracting the soldiers. At least that's what the brother thought. So the oldest brother said, "I know your arrogance and your evil heart." See, he saw David as just a little boy who had left his responsibility with the family sheep so he could have some excitement and watch the battle. Well, David asked his older brother, "What have I done now?" You can hear in those words that David, the youngest brother, was accustomed to his brothers criticizing him constantly. But when King Saul heard that David was willing to fight the giant, he sent for him to bring him to his tent. Well, King Saul was surprised at how young David was. And so he told him, "You cannot fight the giant." This is what he says, "You are just a youth." And he, speaking of the giant, has been a warrior since he was young. So David told King Saul, "The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." Okay, so King Saul said, "All right, go, and may the Lord be with you." Now, King Saul was not willing to fight Goliath, but he offered his armor to David. Well, King Saul was a big man, and his armor was way too big for David. And David had no experience wearing or using armor. So David took it off and simply wore his shepherd's clothing. He took the 2 tools he always carried with him, his shepherd's rod and his familiar sling. Well, David picked up the ammunition for his sling from a brook going through the valley. He found the 5 smooth stones that he needed. Then he moved towards the giant. And Goliath, the giant, and the man holding his shield moved towards David. But Goliath was disgusted. He looked and he saw that David was young, and he was dressed like a shepherd, not a warrior. So Goliath shouted, "Am I a dog that you come against me with sticks?" Then he cursed David by his pagan gods. And he said he was going to kill David and feed him to the birds and animals. Well, this was David's answer. "You come against me with a sword, a spear, and a javelin. But I come against you in the name of the Lord of armies, the God of the ranks of Israel. You have defied him." So David said that God would defeat Goliath's entire army. Then everyone would know the battle is the Lord's, and he will hand you over to us. So, what does David do? He ran toward the giant, put a stone in his sling, whipped it around, and let it fly at just the right time to sink into Goliath's forehead. The giant fell face forward. David took Goliath's huge sword, lifted it up, and finished the job. The Philistine army turned and ran, and King Saul and his army chased them, and God enabled them to have a great victory. After that, the women sang songs about what David had done. But inside, in his soul, David knew that God is the one who should be praised. He thanked God in many of the songs that he wrote. David wrote about God being a good shepherd. In Psalm 23, verse 4, it says, "Even when I go through the darkest valley, I fear no danger, for you are with me." Even in the valley where Goliath intended to kill him, David was not afraid. Because he wrote in Psalm 23:4, "For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." I want to encourage you with 7 principles from this narrative. First, faith in God. Our confidence in life must come from our belief that we are not alone in our struggles and that God is always with us. Second principle, have courage in the face of adversity. Be willing to honor God despite the size and strength of the opposition. Do not ever allow fear to paralyze you from taking action. By faith, choose to take action despite what it is that's facing you. Third principle, recognize your strengths. Rely on your unique God-given skills, talents, and abilities. Fourth, we need to remember this principle. Size and outward appearances can be very deceiving. What matters most is your heart, your courage, and your commitment to the task that God has set before you. The fifth principle, hard to do, but God calls us to do it. Confront your fears. Do not be consumed by fear. Be consumed by your faith in God. Sixth, God uses those who are willing. Doesn't matter your skill, your experience, anything. What matters is your willingness by faith to do what God calls you to do. And finally, seventh principle, focus on the mission in front of you. David's mission at that moment was Goliath. So do not be distracted by the size of the challenge or the possible fear of failure. We need to trust God. We need to be like David, and we need to step forward, trust God, and honor God with all that we are and all that we do. Thanks, guys. Hope you have a great Tuesday, and may God richly bless us as we seek to serve Him. Take care.